Have you ever wondered why some people seem to possess relentless drive, unwavering focus, and iron-willed discipline, while others start strong but collapse under pressure? This isn't just about motivation. It's not about hype or hustle. Discipline begins where emotion ends. It is not simply about forcing yourself to do difficult things. It's about rewiring your brain to choose what is right over what is easy. At the center of this transformation lies a region of your brain known as the prefrontal cortex. This is the seat of reasoning, planning, and restraint. It is the part of your brain that says no when the body screams, why us? But here's the truth. Most people have left this power dormant, untrained, and undernourished. They are slaves to impulses, not because they lack moral strength, but because they have not exercised the mental muscle that God himself placed in them to lead. The prefrontal cortex is the gatekeeper between the higher self and the base desires. When temptation calls, whether it be laziness, anger, indulgence, or apathy, it is the prefrontal cortex that must stand guard. This isn't just science. It's spiritual warfare at the neural level. Scripture speaks of taking every thought captive. That is not metaphorical. It is literal. When you train your brain to pause before acting, when you create space between impulse and response, you are stepping into divine order. You are aligning your biology with spiritual discipline, but it requires consistency. It requires intention. You must show up daily and put your mind in alignment with heaven's commands. Training this system begins with self-awareness. The moment you feel the pull to avoid, to procrastinate, to seek comfort, pause. That pause is the battlefield. That silence is the opportunity. In that space, your prefrontal cortex can either step forward in strength or fall back into passivity. And make no mistake, the enemy wants that part of you weak. Because when you live by emotion, you live in bondage. But when you live by conviction rooted in understanding, you live in dominion. God designed the human brain to be shaped by choice. This is neuroplasticity. Your brain literally rewires itself based on your repeated decisions. Each time you override an emotional urge, each time you discipline your body and bring your thoughts into submission, you reinforce the circuits of strength. Like lifting weights in the gym, every act of restraint builds neural endurance. You are not just surviving the moment, you are becoming someone new. You are transforming your mind by the renewing of your mental patterns. The same structure that once defaulted to distraction can be rebuilt to default to discipline. That is power, that is stewardship, that is worship with your biology. You do not need to wait for motivation to show up. You need to train your mind to obey. And that obedience starts in the prefrontal cortex. The world says follow your heart, but the word says guard it. And to guard it, you must have a mind that is awake, alert, and aligned with your deeper purpose. Dopamine is not the reward. It's the signal that keeps you moving toward the reward. This is where most people get it wrong. They chase dopamine through fleeting pleasure as a scroll through social media, a bite of sugar, another hit of novelty. But true discipline begins when you reverse that pattern. When you train your nervous system to associate dopamine not with the outcome, but with the process. God wired your brain to pursue what you value. And when you place value on growth, on challenge, on obedience to a higher calling, your brain begins to generate the fuel of pursuit from effort itself. This isn't just mental strategy, it's spiritual alignment. The scriptures speak of perseverance producing character and character producing hope. That is the path of dopamine rightly governed. When you begin to delay gratification, not as punishment, but as preparation, you unlock a level of intraneedal strength the world cannot counterfeit. Your body may feel fatigue, your emotions may rebel, but your reward system, properly trained, will keep you steady, focused, and driven. The world may call it willpower, but in truth, it's divine neurobiology submitted to purpose. Your brain releases dopamine in response to novelty, progress, and anticipated reward. But here's the secreting: if you attach dopamine to the finish line, you only feel alive when you win. But if you anchor it to the effort, to the daily push, to the unseen discipline, then you become unstoppable. Every step becomes its own reward. Every repetition becomes fuel. Every sacrifice becomes a spark. And over time, you no longer crave shortcuts because your joy is in the climb. That's not just mindset. That's holy transformation. Satan wants your dopamine hijacked. He wants it addicted to distraction and dependent on pleasure, because a distracted man is a defeated man. But when you reclaim your reward system for the kingdom, when you learn to find joy in denying the flesh and strengthening the spirit, then your biology becomes your ally, your brain becomes a temple of endurance, and the fire in your bones will not be put out by fleeting comforts or temporary highs. There is power in reframing effort as reward. It is how warriors are forged. It is how saints endure. When you rejoice in the struggle, when you lift your hands not just in victory but in battle, you activate the reward chemistry that fuels supernatural persistence. This is how you run the race with endurance. This is how you fix your eyes not on what is seen, but on what is eternal. Discipline is not a burden. It is the birthright of those who choose to rewire their pursuit for something greater than themselves. Discipline does not grow in comfort. It is forged in resistance. One of the most powerful tools to shape your nervous system for discipline is deliberate cold exposure and controlled stress. These are not trends or tricks. They are physiological resets that awaken ancient pathways in your brain and body. Pathways designed to help you face adversity, not flee from it. When you intentionally put yourself in discomfort and remain there by choice, you are teaching your brain that stress is not the enemy. It is the signal to rise. Your body has a mechanism called the stress response, and most people let it control them. But when you expose yourself to stress in a calculated and consistent way, such as through cold showers, breath holds, or high-intensity effort, you begin to master that mechanism. The amygdala, which processes fear, becomes less reactive. The prefrontal cortex, which governs decision-making control, grows stronger. In that place of controlled discomfort, your brain rewires itself to stay calm under pressure. You are no longer driven by emotion. You are led by conviction. This is not just its submission. It is choosing to crucify the flesh, not just spiritually, but neurologically. When you step into that cold water, you are not just shocking your system. You are training it. You are telling your body, we do hard things and we do them on purpose. The first few seconds may feel unbearable, but the longer you remain, the more you awaken dormant power. That is not weakness leaving your body. It is hesitation being burned out of your mind. The warrior spirit is not born in moments of triumph, but in hours of pressure. Discipline grows when the body wants to flee, but the mind says stay. And the more you practice staying, under stress, under pressure, under discomfort, the more your brain adapts. Your autonomic nervous system shifts. Your heart rate stabilizes. Your cortisol response becomes regulated. You don't just feel different, you become different. In a world that runs from pain, the disciplined run toward it. Not recklessly, but with intention. Cold exposure and stress training are tools given by the creator to teach the body submission, to bring the mind into clarity, and to separate the strong from the stagnant. You are not meant to float through life. You are called to rise, to lead, to overcome. But to do that, you must step into the places your flesh resists, because every second in discomfort under your control is a second closer to the version of you that cannot be broken. When others shrink in fear, you will stand in discipline. When the world pursues ease, you will pursue endurance, because you have trained your mind through your body to love pressure, not for its pain, but for the promise it brings. And every cold breath, every trembling stand in the face of resistance becomes a sacred act of strength. Your brain is not just a machine. It's a rhythm-driven instrument, and the rhythm it follows most closely is the light of day. The sun was the first clock God set in motion, and your neurobiology was designed to follow its cycle. This isn't just poetic. It's powerful. When you align your discipline with your circadian rhythm, you unnatural waves of energy, focus, and drive that are hardwired into your biology. And when you ignore them, you fight an uphill battle against your own design. In the early hours of the day, your cortisol rises naturally, not to stress you, but to prepare you. This rise is your biological call to action. Light exposure during these hours doesn't just wake you up. It sends a signal to your brain's master clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, telling every cell in your body that it's time to activate. It is in this window that motivation is most available, decision-making is clearest, and self-control is strongest. This is not accidental. This is how the creator designed discipline to work hand in hand with nature. When you miss this window, you don't just feel groggy, you start the day out of sync with your purpose. Circadian alignment is more than waking up early. It's about tuning your habits to your body's God-given rhythm. Morning light, physical movement, and intentional effort early in the day build momentum that cascades through your entire system. Your dopamine system becomes more responsive. Your metabolism is primed. Your mind sharpens. But if you delay these things, if you hide from the light, if you remain idle when your body was designed to move, discipline feels forced, unnatural, and draining. You weren't created for spiritual sleepwalking. You were made to rise, to move, to dominate the morning. At night, your body prepares for recovery. Melatonin rises, body temperature drops, and your mind begins to slow. When you honor this cycle with stillness, dim light, and reflection, you invite renewal. When you defy it with screens, stimulation, and chaos, you rob yourself of the very energy needed to stay disciplined tomorrow. Discipline, then, is not just about what you do. It's about when you do it. Timing matters. Realignment matters. In the chaos of modern living, people have forgotten that divine timing is built into their biology. They feel lost, tired, unmotivated, not because they lack desire, but because they've fallen out of sync with the sacred pulse of life. But you can return, you can reclaim your mornings, you can train your mind to rise when the world sleeps, to move when others delay, to hear the whisper purpose in the silence of early light. And in that space, your discipline won't just be effort, it will be harmony with heaven's order.